Tuberculinum likes to cut things. They even like to like cut hair. They're like really into scissors. Tuberculinum people are like the classic funky hairstyle, you know, with like the mohawk and this shaved head here and, you know, one string of pink here. And I think of tuberculinum sometimes with that. But yeah, tuberculinum kids can be really destructive. You know, it's like they need to release this energy that's their boundaries are poor and they pick up infections and they have that quality. So let's get started with this class. Today's class is our third class on the miasms, and leading up to this class this past week, my life has just been so carcinosin-y, and this is a remedy that I give the most in practice, and it sells the most in our dispensary. So I know lots of homeopaths give this remedy a lot, and so it's crucial for us to understand it with some depth. Whenever we would do class intakes in my homeopathy school with Amy Rothenberg, she would always prescribe carcinosin, and like we're like, oh my God, is every person carcinosin? So carcinosin, probably followed by tuberculinum, is the second most common one. So we'll dive into that and then maybe touch on the other ones. So yeah, my week was carcinosin because I'm super overextended. I'm doing like 1,000,001 things. We're building a house. I'm working. Eva got really sick, but I didn't put her first. She got sick on Tuesday, and I was like, oh, she'll just get better. She'll get better. Gave her Spongia, you know, didn't really like pay attention. And then on Thursday, I had this appointment in the morning, and I just let her watch cartoons, and she just went and she tanked when I thought she was getting better. And I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't really paying attention to what was happening with her. And in a way, I think I wasn't paying attention to myself either, in the way that I'm getting overextended with 1,000,001 projects. And so finally, I was like, do you want to take a bath? And she's like, yeah, no. And she's like, I'm like, do you want to take a bath if I get in the bath with you? And she said, yes. And so I sit in the bath with her, and that's, you know, if you can bathe with your kids, it's a great way to kind of pick up on their energy because you're in the same water. But I just watched her, and she was just refusing everything, really stubborn, but wanting to cling to me. And I'm just feeling into the remedies, and I'm like, is it this? Is it this? And like, just no, 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 no. And then finally and then I'm like, Ferrum-Foss, and it was like, yes, Ferrum-Foss. She had the bright cheeks, bright lips, didn't want to be pressured. And I'm like, Ryan, can you bring me some Ferrum-Foss? And he's like, I told you to give that 3 days ago. And I'm like, I didn't even have the energy to go into my dispensary, get it, and give it to her. And I know she needed it 3 days ago. And that's me being carcinose. That's me being overextended, you know? And it's kind of sad. Ferrum-Foss, she gave it to her in the tub, and she just like conks out, falls asleep practically in the water. We wrap her up, put her to bed. And then that night, like, her cough comes back, you know? And I'm like, oh my God, you know, I read the keynotes for Ferrum-Foss, and it fit perfectly. And I was like, redose the Ferrum, and the cough comes back, and I'm like, what is going on here? And we can't sleep, and I'm just like, oh, it's so hard. And, you know, my mom would just give an antihistamine to stop the drainage and cough suppressant, something to make me sleep, you know, would like knock me out of it, you know? And I wanted that. I wanted that. You know, we all want that. So that's easier than letting your kid have the natural process of the disease. And so I went in, and I took my desktop companion, and I sat on the couch, and I just read through every fever cough remedy. And I'm like, what feels right? You know, it's so hard when it's your own kid sometimes to really feel it. And like, I had to use my heart. I'm like, which one is pulling me in? So I gave her an unusual remedy. I gave her Tella aranea, which is the spider web. And I gave it to her in a high potency, and then I lay down next to her, and I got all these visions. I literally closed my eyes, and I saw like strings of white, and I saw like white wrapped up things. It was like I was in a spider web, and I could feel all these connections wanting to break, all the webs that I've been creating, just poof, 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 trying to break that and release. And she did better the next day. But anyways, it was just a real lesson in letting go. And that's what the lesson of carcinosin is. And then this morning I had a phone call with my old college friends. My old college friends are from the East Coast. We went to Georgetown. My roommate works for the State Department. She's has a 5-month-old and is working 9 to 5, drops baby off at daycare. You know, just her friends are testifying against Trump right now, like in total carcinosin mode. And it's just crazy. You know, I'm like, oh my God, like, what are we doing? Like, what are moms doing right now? The other friend has a 9-month-old and her boss is sick. She needs to give her 9-month-old to her mother-in-law so she can fly to San Francisco for a week of meetings, leaving her baby behind. It's like, what are we doing? So this is a lesson of carcinosin that I really want to give to you today. Earlier this week, I took an appointment with a mom who, while she was pregnant, she was a veterinary tech. And this kid and mom have every single animal vector disease you could imagine. And I'm like, as a veterinary tech, she's like, no, I don't wear gloves. I've gotten scratches, bites, everything, you know? I'd find stray kitties and clean their teeth, you know, like, and loaded up with infection. And in her meditation, she's just like, you know, vaccinating animals, vaccinating her kid, and vaccinating herself while pregnant, just fully loaded with stuff. And in her meditation, she's like, this machine that we're in, this machine of control, this machine that wants to control us, it's so big. And I just don't know if I'm strong enough to stand up to it. You know, and the machine, you know, for a while I was like, oh, does she need a remedy from a metal? And really going into the meditation, I'm like, this machine is our culture, the culture that we live in that's just driving us. And she's like, this machine is just, it's so big, it's so much, and I don't know if I can stand up to it. And then she goes deeper into the meditation. And she feels into her heart, and she's like, I have so much love. The love in me is bigger than all the stars, the moon, the sun, the galaxy. I feel, and all of me is directed to my child. That love is so big. And so I asked her, is that love big enough? Is it bigger and more powerful than this machine? And she stopped, and she was really quiet. And she took that in, and she cried. She's just like, wow, you know, is that love that we have inside of us as moms bigger than this machine that's driving us, that's driving our culture? And I hope that it is for the sake of this planet. So anyways, that's it. That's our lesson for today. Carcinosin is the remedy for our culture today. It's the remedy for where we go, why we get so easily outside of us, because we have so many demands and expectations and people to please, and we lose touch with ourselves. And everybody can do this. The most like new age, au natural person who's like in nature all the time does this too. Ashland is loaded with people like this, you know, afraid of something coming in and affecting us. And people who are spiritually seeking and spiritually bypassing can be super carcinosin-y, because you think something outside of you is going to fix you. you know, and you lose touch with the fact that the only thing that you really need is your core self and being in touch with our core self. So right before I came into class today, I was way out in what's called the Green Springs, and there's like hippies living out in the woods in Oregon. And Moira, you can testify to this. Maybe you can say something about this. This is really like, there's a movement happening in the United States where people are saying no. People are saying yes to being Amish without being Amish. Yes to being like Mennonite or whatever. They're like letting go of everything, you know. So I met this family that's out there. The guy's from New Jersey, grew up in New Jersey, you know, his wife's from Chicago, and they're living off of nothing in the middle of the woods, and with an 8-month-old and a 3.5-year-old, and building cob houses and growing their own food, and walking around barefoot in 40-degree temperature. And yeah, tent communities and Flagstaff everywhere. Awesome. A lot of hipsters. Yeah, and what they're leading, and why I was out there, was there's this, you know, trend for, you know, being retreating, like just cutting all the cell phone, all the connections, all the demands off, and they're leading what are called dark retreats. So a dark retreat is you go in the dark, leave everything behind, and you sit in the dark. And someone brings you some food, and that's it. Okay? So this is the opposite pole versus the East Coast and my friends on the East Coast. But I think it's part of the medicine that we all need. So let's go into, I want to share, here we go. Oops. All right, you guys, oh, here are my notes on carcinosin. We'll start with carcinosin. And you guys are comfortable right now, everybody online right now, you know what a miasm is. Let's go into carcinosin since I'm talking about it, and at the end of class, when we have time, I'll talk about miasms for plants, animals, and minerals, which we covered last week. All right. Darkness is where you can't hide from yourself. Yeah, you know, this is what the Native Americans did. A vision quest was you make a little circle in the woods. You put an outline for yourself, and you sit in that circle with nothing for like 3 days. You know, and this is where you can't hide from yourself, and you have to go inside, and you have to see what you need to see. I try to do this with meditation with people all the time, like see the darkness, what's in the darkness. Everything is shadow that we have to clear through. And every remedy that's given is to work on that shadow. So carcinosin. So carcinosin is, you know, in the first class we talked about psychosis being the center of performance, you know, and everything's so awesome that if it's not, I hide it. Syphilitum is the end stage of like, we're all gonna die, it's hopeless, you know, I might as well just give up right now, okay? We're looking today at the miasms in between that, where most of you are at, and where most people in some form of degenerative chronic disease are in these places between. And so there's this part of you, it's almost like the container has been built, your house, your body has been built, and it's in deterioration. Sorry to say it, you guys, you're deteriorating. You know, it's just like, this is just life. It's sad, you know. I think most of us are past 40, right? The cancer miasm is right past psychosis. So psychosis is, I'm at the summit, it's rigid, it's fixed, you know, this is how things are. And then carcinosin is, I'm overdoing things. like this is my limit, is that's here, but I'm overstretching what I can actually do, and I'm juggling so many balls that if I'm worried that if I stop, everything will fall apart. And there's a lot of control that's exerted in order to maintain this state of like overextension, right? So so the words for the cancer miasm are overdoing it, copying, repetition, according to Schulten. There's a couple of types of carcinosin available. There's carcinosin, the typical one that most people use is from breast cancer. But I think probably smarter is to use the one that's made from more forms of cancer. So there's carcinosin T58 from 58 tumors and carcinosin T15, which was created and written about by Tina Smits, and carcinosin cum cuprum, or cuprum cum carcinosin, which is a combination of copper and carcinosin that Tina Smits made. And he put cuprum because cuprum is very much about control. So it's like control on the like mineral level plus control as a kind of a carcinosin thing, which I haven't given that often. The one time I muscle tested somebody for cuprum cum carcinosin was a mom of 17 kids. 17. She's Catholic. She was highly controlled, and she bore out of her own uterus 17 children. So she was like master controller. Her husband was exhausted and like at the end of his rope. He was done. He was like stage 16, stage 17. But anyway, so carcinosin. I most frequently prescribe it. Actually, I'm gonna change to the other document. Oh yeah, okay, perfect. So Paul Hersky was my main homeopathy teacher, and he creates cycles for the remedies, and that's how he teaches them. And it was a wonderful way to learn them because you could learn a remedy as like a system, and it was an easy way to understand it. But as I started to practice, I felt like, the cycles that he created, they're too general, and they weren't helpful because they were too generalized. Like every cycle had a discharge and a suppression, but I'm teaching you this cycle of carcinosin because I think this one's pretty helpful. I think it's pretty interesting to understand. It's such a broad remedy, and you could see people in like one cycle, part of the cycle, and not the other. So I want you to understand the full cycle of what carcinosin is about. Okay? So the point of a cycle is that you can start at any point in this cycle. And so there isn't one place where, this is where it's created from. Like everything leads to the next thing. Okay? Oh, great. Sasha's taking T58. Feels like she's done with everybody's BS. I actually use traditional carcinosin, the breast cancer one, for my purposes. I've not explored a ton of T58 and T15, but I think I'm going to use it more. And I have an article on that in this document. And I just put this in a separate document because it's not my writing. My writing is in the first document. This second document is just taken off the internet and from my notes. Yeah, T58 and 15 do include breast cancer. So let's just go down, understanding the cycles and the segments. So the cycle is, I have a lot of fears and anxieties. So typically, people who need carcinosin are like hypochondriacal. Let's just say that. Like there's a lot of things that they're they're aware of all the things in the environment, for example, that could be bad for them. And some of this comes from being overeducated, you know, like it's like ignorance is bliss. Don't you wish you were sometimes people who didn't like know about stuff and just ate crap food and you know? But a carcinosin person is very aware, and so um, they can be afraid of all sorts of things that can get to them. Part of this fear comes from the way that they're raised. So if you're raised in a way of like, there's so many bad things in the world that can get you, and you're like really sheltered, and you know, parenting that takes power away from the kid by doing things for them that they could do themselves, puts them a little bit more in a carcinosin state, or puts them in a state of like self-suppression, like they're holding their own capacity back. Right. So carcinosin person is fearful in the way that phosphorus is fearful, or agaricus is fearful, or, you know, just a little bit anxious. Like a metarinom person is not fearful. They just kind of charge into the world and their body can handle it. A carcinosin person is a little bit more refined, sensitive, aware of all these little things, and it makes them anxious, and it makes them want to take naps and take lots of supplements and go to lots of doctors and find that thing out there that can fix this insecurity in them. And what happens is they get kind of like pulsatilla, but they get a little bit like codependent. They get codependent on medications and healers. And so our culture promotes codependence. Alexa, fix this, you know, like that. Like think of all the ways that like our culture wants us to just be like potatoes on a couch doing nothing but ordering food and like playing video games and like just basically being these like, I don't know, like what are we when we're that way? You know, they're really codependent on a lot of services and things and being taken care of, right? And it's nice, you know, kids, we want that. It's nice to be nourished and taken care of. But when you become really reliant on that and you lose the ability to say, I can do this myself, you know, when you're so kind of comforted by our cushioned culture, it puts us a little bit more towards this suppressed state, right? So because they're fearful and because they like to be taken care of, carcinosin people on the whole, they're sensitive to others, they are sociable, they like to connect, you know, in that psychotic way that we talked about metarinom, like they're still very connecting. Connecting is how they get by in the world. Wally. Right. Those like big cushiony people in Wally. You're right. You're just like this, you know, floating stomach with big 7-Up gulps, and yeah, totally. And it's like it's just very strange. Blobs. You know, and we all know that. We see our culture. We're dying because we're blobs. And I think there's something desperate in our in these coming generations too, that really wants to be like, I can figure this out. I can do it myself. The whole do-it-yourself movement is an awesome reaction away from this, right? All right. So they begin to lose their sense of self, not really knowing themselves as much as they should, not being a solid individual. So what does it mean when we have like a solid individual? What is a solid individual to you guys? Like, what is that feeling of somebody who's like you're like, this is a solid person? Like, what makes somebody that way? What's your sense of it? Or do you know people like that in your life? And you know, honestly, like if I think about, incoherent, if I think about like the solid people in my life, they kind of don't care there's a part of like, I don't care what people think. I'm just thinking of like my husband. He doesn't care if it's someone's birthday, you know. He doesn't even care if it's our anniversary, which I'm like, yes, a lot of integrity, strong sense of self, people who aren't moved by every wind, responsible, honest, caring. I love this. Impenetrable, firmness of self. Yeah, takes responsibility for actions and circumstances. They are themselves wherever they are. Stable, calm, focused, determined, disciplined, incoherence. Oh my gosh, awesome. So this is something that we want to cultivate. All of these beautiful adjectives that you guys gave. Stable, calm, focused. I'm myself wherever I am. I take responsibility. I'm impenetrable. I'm firm. I'm responsible. I'm honest. I'm caring. I have integrity. I'm not moved by every single, idea and thought out there. I'm not so worried about what people think. Presence and connect. Yeah. So, carcinosin people lose that. They lose that. They begin to lose their sense of self, not knowing themselves as much as they should. They only hear the vague voice of who they really are and who they are meant to be. So it's not just suppression from a parent or people. They suppress themselves. They lose themselves, right? And so a lot of remedies, so they can become kind of inward and quiet, and they don't speak up, they don't speak out. I've definitely known a lot of carcinosin people to get overwhelmed by too many people, and then they go home and they take a nap. Like that's what they like to do. And it's difficult sometimes talking to carcinosin people because you feel like they're hanging on every word that you say, and if you say the wrong thing, it's going to insult them. And sometimes it's hard to be like as authentically gritty around a carcinosin person because you're so worried you'll offend them because they've got all these little things, all these sensitivities that are just a little too much, right? So we'll get to the physical stuff. So because they start to kind of not be themselves, and then they're kind of judging everything based on kind of outside perspectives, they get resentful. They can't, they become kind of like, they inwardly get angry. They inwardly get angry at that person for doing something XYZ to them, or this person took advantage, or you didn't do this for me, or you were supposed to do this. And that you're at the mercy of all of these opinions, and it's a pretty crappy state to be in, And so because you can't be yourself, the carcinosin person rebels. And they do things that are like a little bit like they need a release. So it's often with like doing something with animals or art, or being, running in nature, or like, or masturbating, some sort of breaking out, to break out, like to release these emotions that I'm holding inside. Okay. Yeah. But then the excitability, it becomes too much for them. They like do it too much and then they break down, and so there's a lot of like, because there's this emptiness on the inside, they're not really being authentic to themselves, and they're trying to please too many other people around them. Their immune systems really are not up to the task. And they allow that way of like people pleasing, it's allowing in too much information in a way into you, and you're not setting boundaries, you're not maintaining your container, and you break down, you take things in. And the kinds of things carcinosin people take in can be anything, any infection, but definitely like low-grade chronic viral infections, Lyme disease, everything kind of chronic, right? A carcinosin person goes a long time without having a very strong immune reaction that does a good clean out. Okay. So that's the cycle of it. And I just want you to look at it one more time. So fears leading to this kind of feeling like I need all of these things. This need for protection is just like a neediness for stuff. And then I get like too much stuff, that I lose myself and I get resentful and then I break out and break down. How do we see this in reality? Because really, probably you can see this in a way in yourselves. And carcinosin, I mean, honestly, it's like, it's the remedy to really get us to say, I don't give an F anymore about that stuff. I just want to do things that make me happy. um, this is Tina Smith's T15 writing. In the beginning, he writes like, there's different forms of carcinosin. So, here are some of the forms listed: stomach cancer, colon cancer. The different pharmacies in Holland, these are the different remedies they have of the different cancers, like the number of cancers. So that 58, this, has, I don't know, this is from Germany. So, thing I wanted to say about the essence of carcinosin: weak ego, compensating. Oh yeah, so I wanted to say this. So what is cancer? Like, what happens when we get cancer? So you guys kind of probably know it's when our cells get confused and we develop tumors, and our body can't identify those tumors as bad, and the tumor replication goes out of control. So it's our immune system comes out of balance. And so we develop these growths and these uncontrolled growths, which kill us, right? So it's the literal loss of control, of controlled growth in the body. On a cellular level, Tina Smith's right, the membrane of the cell is unstable and weak. The cell ingests toxins and can't defend its integrity. Carcinosin's allowing too much in, too open. These ingested poisons damage normal functioning, creating anarchy, and estrange himself from his own essence. But the whole process has already started long before on the emotional and the mental level. What happens to most emotional, mental level and the patient having taken carcinosin is that his self-confidence. Yes. So once you take carcinosin, your self-confidence grows. You listen more to your own needs. You defend yourself better. You fortify your boundary. You get into the process of more awareness of what is him and what is not him. No longer allowing poisonous energy to settle inside the borders. So in immunology, and this is just a model, when we learn immunology in school, we learn that every one of our cells, that is us, has a little marker that says Heather Stewart, Moira Evans, Anne Marie, like every one of your cells has that little tag. It's you. When something comes in that's like an invader, it doesn't have one of those, and so that's what all of these infections are trying to do. They're trying to evade our capacity to defend what is us and what is not us. And on the whole, in our culture, that's what we're up against constantly. What is ours? What is not ours? I went to Georgetown, super preppy East Coast school. That was not me. I was like, ugh, I do not want to go back for my reunion. And so it's like really trying to come more into our authenticity. More of what is us is how we heal, on a mental and emotional level. So, what is that? I had to, this week, where I'm taking on all these projects, like, what do I really want to do? What do I really like to do? Like, what really feeds my soul? What is in my alignment for my soul, for my heart, for my personal growth? And I want all of you guys to really feel into that. Like, what is true to you? You know, what is true to you? And, you know, it could be a part of your culture. You could be from Brazil and, you know, be dancing, life and music, it's true to you and you've lost that. You got to get back to it, you know, or maybe, you know, what's true to you is, you know, a quiet cabin in the snow. You know, so really finding your true essence. Tina Smits talks about medical influences and how much medical influences push us into the carcinosin state, and that essentially vaccines are huge in creating a carcinosin state. And I believe this too. The carcinosin patient has a tendency to place strength outside of themselves. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And this is what happens when you get the tumor. You completely have to surrender, you know, and then you're helpless and completely dependent on the doctor. But Dr. Bernie Siegel, American surgeon, insists when you have cancer, you have to be assertive. You have to ask for what you want and have your needs fulfilled. For someone with cancer, so it's a good question. So I was thinking about this. So here's the conundrum for me is that a lot of homeopaths get cancer. So Amy Rothenberg, Paul Herskey's wife, got breast cancer. A homeopath in my circle of homeopaths in LA got cancer and died. Tina Smits, who wrote this, died of cancer. So you're like, wait, okay, like if you're getting cancer so much, why are homeopaths dying of cancer? But what I see in these homeopaths is still the pattern of overextending myself, worrying too much what people think, worrying too much about my patients. And the true, like, what is the true lesson of cancer? Like, what do we have to like really learn with cancer? And I'd love, have any of you had cancer? And Flavia, like, you can so dance it like you're a Brazilian all the time, and we would love that. Your prayer and meditation circle should also be a dance circle. Janice had breast cancer. So Janice, can I bring you on actually, Janice? What do you learn from breast cancer? Okay, hold on. So you know, Stephanie Witzel, who's in Sacred Alchemy, I was very close with her as she went through her cancer, and I felt a lot of her symptoms was in it. And for her, it was very much about embodiment, like getting really embodied and really authentic and really true. I'm trying to find you. Where are you? Janice. Janice, are you P? No. Oh, there you are. Scroll through. Unmute. Okay. Tell us about what you learned from cancer, Janice.
Oh God. Well, I kind of it was something I was always afraid of, and I know that's part of the picture. It was, for me, it was about, as a child, having my boundaries invaded all the time. I didn't have any boundaries because I wasn't allowed to have boundaries. And so having cancer helped me develop boundaries, because all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, this needs to stop. I'm giving too much. I was giving too much to work. As a nurse, you know, they can suck the life out of you if you don't set boundaries. But they make it, you know, they make you look at it as your duty. You know, you're supposed to give everything. You're supposed to give all. And I learned, that's the biggest thing I learned, is how to set boundaries. And I might have gone too far in the other direction at this point, but
How did you go too far in the other direction? What was your boundary setting?
Well, now I'm just saying no to everything. And I'm just like, no, I am going home and I'm sitting on the couch. That's too bad. I don't even have to have an excuse, and I don't give people an excuse. If I want to say no, I just say no.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. It's very freeing. It's
the powerful lesson of saying no is really powerful, you know. And I think a lot of moms who are in this like super negative self-martyr chlorum state, you know, of, you know, just like giving everything of themselves, and they're super negative, what they haven't really figured, like what they have to do is just be like, no, no more doing this. Like, it's time for me to get centered and do things for myself.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. Anita Morjani. Yes. Isn't she the one who died of cancer and then came back? And she's now like a spiritual teacher, Anita. Anyways, well, thank you, Janice. Yeah.
Sure. And the other thing I wanted to say is I was not treated conventionally. As a nurse, seen too much of that. And that was what scared me. Having cancer didn't scare me. It was the treatment that scared me.
Okay.
So I saw Catherine Coulter and used homeopathy.
Awesome. And what remedies helped you?
Well, she was one of those homeopaths who wouldn't tell you what the remedy was at the time.
Uh-huh.
So she used Carcinosin with me, but I'm not sure which one it was. And then Nat Muir and Sepia were two of my biggest ones. I can't remember the other ones, but those were two of my biggest ones.
Yeah, I have the Bonjuri. Do you guys know Bonjuri? I don't know if I'm saying that right. Bonjuri. It's these cancer protocols. They're homeopathic.
Oh,
Banerjee. Yeah, sorry, Banerjee. They're homeopathic cancer protocols, and I decided to just look through the book to see, like, it's different forms of cancer. And so if it's the liver cancer, it's taking like Cardus marinus 3 times a day, which is homeopathic milk thistle. And I was like, how many of his protocols actually have carcinosin? And about a third or a half of them have the use of carcinosin for the treatment of cancer. Stephanie, who I helped through cancer, she went through had a very aggressive form of cancer where a large percentage statistically people die, and a lot of cancer in her family. So she went through all the chemo and the radiation and the removal of organs. And we still did a lot of remedies, and it really helped. And I've also met other people who have cleared cancer. Actually, I've cleared cancer in people with Unda remedies. I treated somebody with throat cancer. And we just did Unda remedies, and it went away.
Wow.
So yeah, I think, so what is the lesson here? It's kind of like boundaries, but also it's like listening to yourself, listening to what it is, and surrendering to what it is that's going to help you heal. Anything else, Janice?
No, that now that you say that, I think I've spent my life since then developing my sense of self.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And what have you discovered?
I'm still working on it.
We're studying all the selves out there with homeopathy. So yeah. All right, thanks, Janice. So with the Undas, I did like throat, like this is simply my surrendering to just like, what am I guided to? I think I gave her Natrum iotum, and I gave her some Undas. She had an autistic child, and cancer and autism are closely connected, right, statistically. So, yeah, it's the pressure, it's like really, really listening in, and Stephanie's journey brought her to her knees. She became so authentically connected to her soul, and made decisions only according to what her soul asked of her. So, yeah. Working with people who have cancer. And cancer is one of those really tricky areas where there's a lot of legal, like if you're a naturopath, you can't say you treat cancer, because it's like everyone's like, ooh, cancer, it's like there's so much fear. That fear Janice said, she said, one of my biggest fears was getting cancer. And it's like, that is a keynote of carcinosin, fear of cancer. That is a keynote of some other carcinosin-like remedies. Agaricus has that fear because you're outside of yourself. So it's your fear that when you're outside of yourself, like phosphorusy or agaricusy, you're going to be more fearful because you've got too many, you're not centered, you're not connecting back inwards. You've got too many things that you're connecting to out here. Yeah. Okay. So hope, Tina Smits talks about hope. Hope being absolutely key with cancer and with healing, and the restoration of reactivity. So it's reactivity is a tricky word because we have a lot of issues with overreactivity and underreactivity, or reacting to the wrong things and not reacting to the right things. And it's all very confusing. It's like, oh man, all of us are reacting to what's on the news these days, but are we reacting to the infections in our body? So in some ways we're overreactive to some things that we probably shouldn't be reactive to. But in general, the reactivity of our immune system, we can kind of kickstart it with some remedies. I would say with most of the nosodes, they're here to kickstart our reactivity. But carcinosin is particularly helpful with helping bring back online the fever reaction, the immune reaction, the, screw this, I'm saying no reaction. I'm just going to put this note back up here really quick. So he's like, Tinas writes, what carcinosin patients tell us before treatment with carcinosin? I am not allowed to fail, to make mistakes. Everything has to be beyond reproach. I didn't get praise. I wasn't told I was capable. I let myself be suppressed easily. There's still a lot of suppressed anger in me. I feel less worthy than other people. I can't say no. I accept everything. Otherwise, I feel guilty. I always avoid conflicts. I agree with everything and everybody, and I cannot stand up for myself. I can't remember if I ever had a fever. The syphilitic person will say, no, screw this, and say no, but they're stuck in the state of like kind of a negative state. That's the opposite of carcinosin. And they are in a state of deterioration. But syphilinum can say no, and it's different. Okay. Yes, Janice says, I clearly tell my clients I do not treat cancer. I educate the immune system so that the body can take care of it and rid the blocks to healing. When I was helping Stephanie through it, we did a lot of past life stuff came up. So when I would do the sensation process and she was in all the radiation pain and like really in it, like immediately all of these past life memories came up. And she taught a class of mine that I have the recording of where she talks about that. But, Bellus perennis, which is a remedy for breast cancer. It's from the daisy. But it came up when she felt herself literally being beaten to death in a past life, like stoned. And she had images of just being stoned and thrown in prison. Different visuals of, being partnering crime to something and then feeling guilty about it and then needing to kind of clear that out. And it's hard to say whether these like past life images were just visual representations of what needed healing on an energetic level, or if it really was past life. It doesn't really matter. But what we went through, it seemed like past life because we were seeing like different places in time. Yes, Bellus perennis. Yeah. Bellus perennis, the remedy from what is it? The sea star, the star in the ocean. Starfish. If you look at the bottom of a starfish, it looks like it has a lot of like glandy things on the bottom. And it's a wonderful remedy for hardened breast tumors. Asticus, I believe it's called. And I could go through my notes and try and find specifically what we did for cancer with her. Of course, like arnica and calendula and all the remedies from the Compositae family, which are for, you know, that kind of consolidation. Asterius rubens, thank you. Asticus is, I think, the crawfish or the lobster. So what carcinosin patients tell us after treatment. I feel that I am someone. I don't feel less valued than other people anymore. I am confident. I take time for myself without feeling guilty. I can help others' problems without taking them on my shoulders. I can more easily say no and defend my own space. I don't feel guilty anymore when I take time for myself. I allow myself to be angry and when anybody shows me lack of respect. I express now what I think and what I feel, and I do my best. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Yes, I set boundaries for my children and satisfy my own needs. So that's, yeah. And so my notes that I shared with you today are very much, so I'm writing a book with Bridget. Bridget's like a book writer, and she's helping me take all of my notes and just condense it a little bit. It will definitely not be as much as what you guys are getting in class, since I'm sending you like 30 pages a week. But, oh, here we go. So this writing is part of that. So what's in this document? So carcinosin is, you know, I give it the most when I see it in kids, kids who are sensitive, easily overwhelmed. You know, I'm a big fan of Sankran, and I like the words that he chooses to align with the different miasms. And the words chaos and control are really good ones, especially control. That feel like you need to be in control or exert control is such, when that comes up, like make sure you like set aside to think about or look at carcinosin or the cancer remedies. Yeah. So a lot of the way that kids exert control, how do kids exert control? You know, they get bossy, or they'll like basically have a tantrum if they don't get their way, or they'll get panicky and anxious, or they'll like exert control over mom. You know, this past week Eva was kind of carcinosin-y because she just wanted me to be around all the time and sitting with her and doing her thing, you know, what she wanted. Yeah, so kids who need carcinosin, it seems like, are pretty varied in their personality, but in general, you know, there can be a suppression of the immune system. These kids do great when they're in school, and then they come home and they let it all out. It's a really good differentiation to ask, okay, if the kid is tantruming, are they also tantruming in school? And if they're tantruming in school, it means that they can't control it. It means that it's more of a brain inflammation, or, you know, just at any time, if they're out in public. You know, it's a brain inflammation thing that they're reacting on a deeper level than they can control. If they're able to kind of control things and they let it all at home, that's more of a carcinosin thing, which is a very civilized thing. In general, these are like, it's an energy of, like I say, of civilization. You know, civilized parents who try to civilize their kids. It was so funny. I was like just at this like opening ceremony in this, you know, tobacco ceremony, and there was a girl that was there, and she was too shy and she didn't want to be there, and she was crying, and then all of a sudden the girl like lets out something. She says something, everybody come in, and the mom says shush 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 shush. And I'm like, oh my God, this poor little girl, like she like is too shy to be in front of people, but as soon as she says something, the mom like shuts her up, you know? And it's like when we do that, you know, to our kids, you know, and we try to get them to kind of be these little civilized adults, it makes them kind of suppressed because kids want to be monkeys and they want to be like crazy, right? Do you guys see that? How do I determine which carcinosin for kids? Is it still preferable to use several forms if you're treating more of a behavioral thing? I I really don't think you're going to find a huge differentiation. I get a lot of success out of giving the standard carcinosin that's from breast cancer to kids. And my feeling is if I started to use carcinosin T15, I'd get the same responses. I have seen people where you've given the breast cancer remedy, carcinosin, develop symptoms around their breasts, like a lumpy thing, and then they develop even more fears. But it feels like something that needs to kind of come out and be released. So, and there could be like another remedy. So someone says, can I define suppression? You know, wow, it's such a huge question. Can you guys define suppression? I want to hear what you guys say. Afraid to be yourself. So maybe there's a difference between suppression and shyness. But suppression is kind of shyness. So that's hard. Going inward, afraid to be yourself, letting others control you. Reduction of strength. Ooh, I like that. Immune reduction of strength. Not allowed to express freely, blocking expression, silencing something that wants to come out. Denial of true state, not speaking out due to fears of changing the situation, even if you want it to change. Yeah. Wanting to, but not being able to. Yeah, that's a little, I would say, you know, there are situations where you simply can't do things, you know, and so it's like, sometimes you just have to be honest where you're between a rock and a hard place and you can't do something and you naturally have to suppress. You know, if you're like, if there's like the Nazis are banging on your door outside and you're like holding back your screaming child, that's like a good thing. Like you're not able to let them speak in that moment. Yeah. Suppression is for fear, is fear for fear's sake almost. Yeah. Um, yeah, it is, control is a really important word, I think, when it comes to it, because if we think about the natural progression as we're moving through the miasms, we start with the soric, and the soric is kind of building themselves up, and they're quiet, and they're kind of calcarby, and you know they're doing their work and they're doing their job, and you know they express themselves just because you know that's their basic needs. Their basic need is to suppress themselves, to express themselves, and they express their basic needs. And then you get into the psychotic miasm, and it's this immense connecting, and you're connecting your energy out there. It's kind of like, have you ever heard like where your focus goes, your energy flows? Like wherever you put your mind to, you're literally, the energy of your body flows to it. So I'm looking at Heather right now. I am connecting to her, right? So if you're connecting so much, your energy is just like flowing out. And sometimes we need to connect less. We need to cut the connections and like come back in and not care as much. And so a soric person is kind of contained, not connecting as much, out of some anxiety. And then the psychosis person is connecting a lot, a little bit too much. And then the carcinosin person is connecting so much that they're so aware of how everybody feels and what's going on that they're afraid to hurt other people or hurt things or like upset things or I don't know, like upset the balance. And so they hold back their own expression. And so that's a different form of, you're not expressing your true self because you're afraid of what other people are going to think. It's different than the Sauric person. The Sauric person is kind of just expressing themselves because they're coming from a place inside, you know. Yeah, I think parents will always suppress their children to some extent. We have to teach them how to be in the world. Yeah, to a certain extent, it's also, there's an amount of like, the frontal cortex and executive functioning and being in control. And so everything in homeopathy is about when things are out of balance. Would this help with empaths without boundaries to the energy of others like me? Yes, yeah, totally. But the thing is, it's there's also when you're too worried. So there's a lot of other remedies that fit the carcinosin state. So let's scroll down here. Carcinosin, of course, for history of cancer. The perfect kid who needs to be perfect in school. These are the words right here that Sankaran associates with the cancer miasm. Control, perfection, fastidious, beyond one's capacity, superhuman, great expectation, chaos, order, stretching beyond capacity. Autoimmunity kind of can fit this too. So these are the remedies that are also associated according to Sankaran. So Staphylos aureus is a really important and good one. Ignatia, associated with carcinosin. So Staphylos aureus and Ignatia and carcinosin, I often feel is like a really wonderful triad for the person, woman, child, man, who's generally used to suppressing their own emotions out of fear of what other people will think. And so they hold back their grief because they're not supposed to cry in front of others. They hold back their anger because they're not supposed to be angry in front of others. So it's over civilized. You're afraid to do things in front of others because you're afraid of what other people would think. So Ignatia helping with the grief, Staphylos aureus helping with the anger, and carcinosin just helping with the overall fear. Great suppression remedies. When you give these remedies, anacardium is within this too. Anacardium is a suppressed anger remedy. Let's see, some of the metals, argentum, arsenicum, these are super perfectionistic OCD people, and they want to be in control. They're worried about what people think. A lot of the metals in the center of the periodic table of elements, aurum, cuprum, ferrum, right, and zinca. Help us all with that. Natmir is in there because Natmir is part of that inward part of that cycle, that really like oversensitive, afraid of what people think as well. Carcinosin for men and women equally. Men so much. I mean, it used to be that men were really kind of, this may be really awful to say, but you think of like, or sexist to say, but men would be like not afraid to like be angry, the angry dad, and like afraid to speak their truth. And the man's the like seen as like the pillar of the family. That's like the traditional perspective of like the father, right? But men are not allowed to be angry anymore. Men need to just submit to their bosses and their jobs and do this work and play this role and meet all these expectations and be at home and do all these things because everybody's asking them to do all these things. So absolutely, I can't believe how much I've given carcinosin to dads before. And you could have a wife who's just berating a husband and absolutely suppressing him too. So there is absolutely no differentiation between men and women with carcinosin or Ignatia or Staphylos aureus. Yes, traditionally women are more emotive because of we are meant to be more embodied and more hormonal and more emotive and all of that. But I have still seen men and men need staphysagria, men need agnasia. And women need like nux vomica too. So opium is a really good remedy for, I just gave this remedy this week to a lot of fear of pain, the suppression of pain, suppressing, not wanting to feel the pain of others. If we avoid suffering, suffering comes even closer to our doorstep. It's just like we can't sweep anything under the rug. Also, the milk remedies, lac maternum, lac caninum, domesticated animals are suppressed, right? By domesticating them, tell them you can no longer be a wild dog. You have to just please me. You can't poop inside. I'll hit you if you poop inside, whatever it is. It's like dogs have totally lost their sense of self, and so a lot of the carcinosin overlaps with the milk and the domesticated animals. The horse, just wants to run and wild and be free, but they have to be corralled, and make their master happy and, walk around a circle a million times. It's really sad. Like if you get to the core of like understanding these animal remedies from a homeopathic point of view, you feel like the domestication of all animals is terrible. Yeah. And, animals really, I think I think it's fine. I think it's fine to have a pet dog and a pet cat, but in general, what we think we need to do to civilize our animals and ourselves generally means poisoning ourselves and getting away from our true selves. I asked that woman who's a veterinarian, and I was like, I heard that veterinarians have a high rate of suicide. She goes, absolutely. And she's like, I just think a ton of them have Bartonella. And I'm like, absolutely. She does. She did. So, and so you've got these like super sensitive carcinosin-y people, who care a lot, who love animals, becoming vets, and then just becoming super sick. It's just really sad. So these are some quotes. So my kid has a lot of anxiety. He needs to do the right thing. Everything is a blur. He needs to trust me for everything. We are literally like one. So this is an issue too. And why do is this true? I heard this, that a lot of autistic parents of autistic kids develop cancer. Is that true? And maybe that's just something that was tossed out there, but boundaries, boundaries are also important with our kids. And I don't think it's true, it changes with time. Of course, we need to have no boundaries with our kids when they're babies, and then they grow into adults and become their own selves. You've heard that too. I don't know if there's research on it. Anyways, we need boundaries with our kids. And especially if you're stepping in and doing things for your kid too much, you're not letting them, you're playing into this carcinosin thing. That the fact that kids need so many therapists and so many people stepping in just so that they can get on with life, is kind of like, oh my God, it's like, it is really, that's a real loss of self. That's a real loss of like autonomy and freedom. Yeah. So, all right. If you don't give in to the answer he needs, it's like everything crumbles. We will rip paper, but in a careful way. Sadness and then rage. I just want to be pummeling something. Okay. I need to know where mom is and to be with me. That umbilical cord is there. Adores mom beyond normal. Needs to be with mom all the time because of a lot of fears. Totally connected with animals, dogs, birthday parties. Very fastidious, but can wreck a room in 5 minutes. It's just really interesting. This, like, I've seen this with little kids. Like, Eva's friends with a mom who's super organized and clean and fastidious and puts everything away and her house is perfect and it looks like it should be in a magazine. And when her kid comes home, she just comes home from being at school and she just takes her whole bin of toys and just throws it in the room. You know, there's like, you know, it's like, oh, just release. I want to get out of this sense of control, you know. And it's just like, oh man, like I've done that with Eva where I'm like cleaning up her mess and all I'm doing is she's making a mess, I'm cleaning up after the mess. She's making a mess, I'm cleaning up after the mess. And it's just like this, like going around and around. And like, then she just like looks at me pissed off that I cleaned up her mess and just takes it and dumps it right back out. You know what I mean? When kids do that and they're just like, stop cleaning up after me. Like I want the mess. I want the chaos. Oh man. I love orderliness. What is the name of remedy for people trying to avoid pain? Opium. Any of the painkiller remedies. So I used to, one of the reasons I have this job I have is because I'm so sensitive to people's pain. I'm empathic to it. I like feel it. And I'd be doing this job and then I'd get the worst headache migraines of my life. And I was taking on the pain until I took sanguinaria, which is in the opium family. So, yeah. 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 Yeah, I really need one of those basements where you just like the kids can just wreck it and like you don't have to worry about it. But I think that's the animal state. Kids are in this animal state. They want to be like, you know, they just want to be like how animals are in the forest where they like are stuffing a bunch of things in the couch like a squirrel stuffs things, you know, into their like little hole. And, you know, they want to make these messes and we don't like it. The teachers say she is very quiet, but the teachers wish for a classroom full of students like her. She is an anxious child, a little jumpy, afraid of loud noises, needs lots of reassurance. Despite her anxiousness, she will usually continue to place herself in whatever situation because she doesn't want to miss out on the fun. This is a phosphorus carcinosin kid. You know, just like perfect in school, doesn't want teacher to be mad at me. You know, some kids are just so naturally sensitive, they get into a carcinosin state easily because they feel what other people feel. And when they feel other people angry, they're so scared of it that they'll do anything to avoid that, you know, and then it puts them into a carcinosin state. So a phosphorusy, a sensitive kid just naturally gets into a carcinosin state. Does that make sense? Yeah. He's tired all the time, legs hurt, arms hurt, really, but not aggressive, gentle to a fault. Yeah, overwhelmed for most of his life. He feels out of control, mad at himself, disappointed, not loving himself. He wants reassurance, can't control his body or impulses, needs security, not comfortable in his own skin, doesn't know what to do, wants others to direct him, embarrassed around other kids, feels he's different than the other kids. This quote here is super like textbooky carcinosin. I'll make that pink. You know, not putting yourself center, out of control, wanting others just to tell you what to do, and then feeling a little different. That feeling different than the other kids, feeling not normal, is a feeling of all the nosodes. Okay. So let's just do this carcinosin meditation, and then I'm gonna like show you the tuberculinum cycle. And we'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll call it an ending for today's class. So now that you guys have some idea of the essence of carcinosin, I was like sitting in a cafe yesterday. I was like, how do I really make this class sink at home? And I was like, do the meditation. So what I did is I wrote this meditation according to the cycle to help us break out of each piece of the cycle, okay? Because this really is a part of all of us. I think all of us have pieces of this or the full cycle, okay? So close your eyes with me. And it's Sunday, and we're connecting, and we're connected through a field of love, support. I want you to imagine holding hands across the internet, across the United States. And just coming into our heart, taking a deep breath in and out. And today we're going to help each other heal and release what needs to be released. And I just want you to coming into yourself, connecting to yourself. I want you to imagine now putting your hands on yourself, on your body, like literally patting your body down. Like, this is me. This is my boundary. What's outside of me is outside of me. What's inside of me is inside of me. And this is my container, my sacred body. And take a deep breath in and out of your body. And I want you to recall the feelings of fear of anything, fear of infection, fear that my kid's gonna get sick or do worse, fear of things coming in and hurting you, fear of the world, the chaos of the world. And I just want you to imagine turning the chaos of the world off, like you're turning the TV off. And closing your eyes, I want you to just feel into your heart and just affirm that there is nothing outside of myself that can heal me better than I can heal myself. Not even a remedy. I am at my core solid. I am at my core the medicine. Who I am is all I need to be in this moment. And connecting to your true self. Remembering who you are. Remembering yourself when you've been joyful at points in your life, doing what you love. And connecting inwards, connecting to your true self. And just saying that I release, just releasing all the areas of yourself that are dependent on other people's acceptance, opinions, how you're perceived. Anything that's excessive in your life. Carcinosin is about releasing excessive medicines, excessive people, any cushions. Releasing and simplifying, releasing the need to do things perfect, releasing control. And as we release, we surrender to a higher power. And we feel the love of who we are. We accept ourselves as we are right now. I want you to see yourself as a little girl before you had kids, before you had your house, your life that you have right now. And just seeing you. And seeing her and saying, she is worthy. I accept her. And all the love that you pour into your kids, pour into yourself. Accept yourself as who you are. And visualize a boundary around you, a boundary that discerns exactly what to let in and what not to let in, and only allowing in what is in alignment with what's best for you. And so getting stronger and stronger in yourself, so as you connect inward, you're more in touch with your authenticity, you're more in touch with your heart, you're more in touch with your emotions, you're more in touch with anger and frustration that you need to feel against the things that have pushed themselves into you. Maybe you felt a force, a person, an opinion impact your life in a way that wasn't right for you. Pushing back against that. This does not resonate me. It's not mine. I speak up. I'm not afraid to speak my truth and say, hell no. 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 And so I want you to say that no, 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 no to what is not yours. And affirming, I am strong on the inside. I am solid. I am like a tree, visualizing like a really solid oak tree that receives light from the sun, that's grounded and heavy, that is contained, has a strong defense system, and is centered and tall and strong. And in my center, in this center, being strong like a tree, the power in my life resides within me, nothing outside of me. And this power is fearless, and this power is love. And just see all that was outside of you is just dust that you can just blow away, swap away, shake off. Like actually like shake your hands like all around your aura, like all around your field, like out, 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 cut, 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 cut. Like you're just trimming all of that. And then open your eyes. All right. So I have a couple of case studies here that you guys can read. One of them was a carcinosin Lyme case. Was really, really good. Main remedy for healing Lyme disease. Amazing remedy for Lyme disease. Another one for, failure to thrive. I started with this one family on carcinosin. Their kid had a fever for 6 days. So it was pretty amazing. And pretty much lost the diagnosis after that 6 days. It was very powerful. All right, so I'm gonna just share, I could end the class now. Did you guys get anything? Anything come up for you? How are you guys doing? You good? All right. Okay. Oh, awesome. Zoe says she created a huge bubble of white around her and everything bounced off of it. Awesome. Yeah. And I think if we can just kind of walk in that, I mean, for me as a sensitive empath who doesn't like to upset people, who is very connecting, I really need to like disconnect on a serious level, like a lot of the time. I need to completely go into dark phase. And when I say that, I like literally just don't email, don't phone, don't like read anything. I just sit there, I do nothing. Yeah. So your little girl self, and just like it's amazing. It's amazing how we can feel so ignored and feel so unloved, yet feel so much love. So if we can direct that love, you know you have that love for your family, for your own kids. Um, yeah, you guys are gonna come out to Joshua Tree. Yeah, the boundary is so important. When I did a guide that meditation I did a couple weeks back and just saying no, it was so important. You know, no, I associate literally no with the physiologic um activity of hydrochloric acid in the body. That's the like you know, no, out. You know, when you eat things and then your body decides whether it's going to take it in and reject it or like dissolve it into nothing, you know, it's like hydrochloric acid, you know, which also is the same energy as bleach, or, you know, is chlorine, HCl. So, you know, when we are receiving too much, we've got like low hydrochloric acid production. We're receiving things into our system we shouldn't be receiving. That's poor boundaries. When we can like have like strong digestion and like our hydrochloric acid is like, you know, gurgling and we're drinking our apple cider vinegar, you know, and our body is really able to like be like, this is good, this is bad, I'm dissolving this. You know, that's really important. Um, so we really have to find that capacity within ourselves to like strengthen. All of these remedies, you know, are really about strengthening. But if you're still in the mindset, still, even with that meditation, I was like, a remedy is not going to save you. You save you. If you're in touch with you, then you find that remedy that you need. But you know, a remedy is you know, a sugar pellet. You saved you. This sugar pellet's not going to save you. You save you. Oh, this week I am doing a class on Tuesday with a woman who is teaching all of these methods of like brain retraining. But I can say this because she publicly talked about this in one of my classes. She came to me for as a patient for homeopathy with a huge story and set of notes that she wanted healed. And my intuition at that time when I was listening to it, I was like, it keeps telling me not to give you a remedy. Like I'm hearing not to give you a remedy. And oh, awesome. And all I'm hearing is that you're a rainbow and that you can heal yourself and that you don't need a remedy to heal yourself. And she's like, really? And I'm like, that's all I'm hearing right now. You know, and so she contacted me like a year later, having done all these things and healed herself and having a huge awakening, you know, and so, you know, even beyond, and I think that's possibly why some homeopaths die of cancer. It's like they need to humble themselves because even homeopathy is not going to heal you. You heal you. And yes, so, you know, we can go inside of ourselves and heal ourselves. When we find a remedy, when I find a remedy for people, that's me connecting to their authentic self, telling me what it is that needs to be unlocked, what needs to be healed. And sometimes people tell it to me, kids, animals, people, all the time I get that information. And occasionally I'll get a super sick person. I'm also treating this like adult man who's seen every homeopath out there, gotten so many good remedies to treat himself, and he keeps self-sabotaging. He'll like take like, you know, some medication and self-sabotage it. And I'm sitting with him and I'm like, these remedies are not going to work until you decide you want to heal. You've got to decide to let go of the ghost of the past that wants to take you down, you know? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, so what remedy do I take? And I'm like, I'm not going to give you any remedy until you affirm I'm ready to let go of the past and I want to heal. And I asked him, I was like, if there was a ghost inside your body haunting you, would you want that ghost to stay or to leave? And I asked him that. And he's like, I'd want it to leave. And I'm like, okay, if you want it to leave, say, I want to get better. We want to get better. Okay? And then we can do the homeopathy. If you don't have that, you're not going to get better. And you're going to keep chasing some sort of like dragon that's just, you know, people do that with everything. They, you know, they try and find all these things to help them feel better, and they don't, all they're looking for is themselves. So yeah, Heal, that documentary Heal has Kelly Brogan in it, who wrote about me in her book in a little tiny part. So yeah, you know, I think, you know, ultimately, and I think this is the ultimate miracle of this class and where we're headed in this class is intuition is about finding yourself, awakening to yourself, you know, and awakening to the power in you to heal yourself, to unlock the patterns that are pulling you down, to see them and be aware of them. You know, awareness is healing, and healing is bringing awareness to the areas that are in the dark, you know, that are in our shadow. And, you know, a lot of you have taken Barnella and reptile remedies and like are in this like dark, depressive, and even suicidal and abusive place. And, you know, what is this loop that keeps playing in your life? And you can kind of unlock it with remedies here and there, but what's going to break the loop is you. Only you. You know, there's nothing outside of you that's going to break it but you. And that's the awakening. That's us. That's like, oh my God, it's me. I love me. I'm awesome. So, yeah, I'm excited for some of you to come on to that class on Tuesday. And I'm kind of thinking, let's just do tuberculinum later and maybe connect a little bit on Tuesday and figure out a way to do like a really awesome kind of meditation group or centering group where we can really get aligned with our higher self, get aligned with the part of ourself that is really, you know, allows us to let go of control and then still feel like we're being held, with it. We don't have to have fear. We don't have to walk around seeking something. So, sound good? Do you guys have any questions? We'll do tuberculinum later. I feel like we like really anchored something today. Anything else? All right, thanks you guys. Lots of love to you. I could also like teach tuberculinum. We'll see. We'll figure it out. We'll fit it all in. We don't have to worry. We don't have to do too much. The whole lesson of carcinosin is do less. So that is my thing with like the cancer walks, the breast cancer walks. It's always like walk a whole bunch. And it's like, no, everybody should sit when they're on a cancer walk. Like everybody should not fundraise, not like go and do something. Like everybody should go home. You know, cancer awareness, it's scary, it's scary. It's like, no, just go home, take a bath, be by yourself. That's how we do cancer awareness. So lots of love to you guys. Yeah, sleep in. All right, thank you. Love you guys, and talk to you next week. I don't even know what I'm teaching. Oh, next week is our like free, you know, week where we're doing cases. So I'd love to talk to Lisa Fox about her daughter, and whatever any of you guys, I know a ton of you guys, I'd love to talk to as bunch of you as possible. And we'll talk a little more about tuberculinum. All right. Mwah. Good night, you guys.